And they've also stumbled across this very small part of the internet that is craving their service. That are going to be the group that's going to power PayPal through their early growth, and that is eBay power sellers. Now, in your book, you talk about how they never sought this group out. They didn't even target this folks. And there's a point where they realize, like, oh my gosh, these are our power users. This is where we have to focus. Tell us about how that happened, how they stumbled on the eBay power users as their core group of customers that they needed to focus on.
Yeah, I think it's actually like one of my favorite stories in the book. And the reason is because it shows you how random success can be with these digital products and with even with whole companies, right? Because basically, if you were to trace PayPal back, you would trace it back to this moment of total accident and serendipity, right? Like that's not the whole story, but it's a big part of the story. And the basic gist of it is this: at the time, one of the internet success stories of this kind of dot-com mania was eBay. We still have eBay today, but eBay back then was like what considered to be this kind of like glittering internet star. And one of the reasons is they had built a very successful marketplace for auction buyers and sellers. And they didn't have to hold any inventory or deal with any shipping or deal with any logistics. So they were just collecting fees on transactions that they brokered, right? Kind of like Airbnb, right? Like if you can play that role, if you can generate a new market, that's a very powerful place to be. They were also profitable from day one, which was not true for a lot of internet companies. Even when they took outside investment, famously, they just took the money from the outside investors and stuck it in the bank and never touched it. They never had to use the outside capital, as far as I know, in any substantial way. So here's the thing. They built a market, but they were relatively hands off. They were connecting buyers and sellers, but part of remaining hands off is deciding, you know what, Manny and Jimmy, you guys decide how you're going to pay. If you want to pay with cash, mail the cash. If you want to use a check, use a check. If you want to use a money order, use a money order. But we're not going to tell you how you should make the payment. That leaves room open for a payment services system like Confinity's PayPal or X.com. Because what's happening is, eBay buyers and sellers, like they're still reconciling so many of these transactions in a very manual, very cumbersome way. Max Levchin commented on Twitter the other day. He said, like, there were so many eBay transactions where people were sticking money in envelopes and sending them around, right? But like, that meant that here's what that means: you close a digital auction. I bid on an item you're selling, right? I bid on a painting. I win the bid. Now I have to take time to like put the cash in the envelope or the check in the envelope. I mail it to you. There's a delay. You have to make sure that the check is good or deposit the cash, right? Then you send out the package. There's another delay. Then I have to get the package and make sure that it's authentic. A third delay. What PayPal was doing was solving for at least the payments part of that, because what I could do is I could enter your email address in and pay you what I owe you for the painting. And there was like a system that was there to make sure that the money was good, or at least mostly. We'll get to fraud later. But that was what PayPal did, is it fixed this very broken part of that payment services. And what happened is that eBay power sellers and the eBay community in general was a very passionate, let's call them passionate community. They had
Right.
message boards. Anytime a new service or product came out that was helpful to their auction services business, people in the eBay community would know about it. And by the way, I mean eBay users, like eBay executives would learn later, but eBay users kind of created their own systems and solutions. When they discover X.com's solution and they discover Confinity's PayPal, they get very excited about it and it starts to take off. The thing I mentioned at the beginning, the accident, here's how it happened. There was at one point a customer service request that came in from an eBay user to Confinity, and it was sent to the kind of like a generic customer service inbox. PayPal's people notice it, it gets forwarded up the chain. And David Sachs and a few other people notice it, and they go on eBay.com and they type in PayPal to see what's going on. And they discover, I think it was hundreds of auction listings where PayPal is being advertised as a service. And this was as close to a eureka moment as you could get, right? That actually, like, the discovery that this thing that you made is being used somewhere is a really powerful moment. There were debates that followed about whether they should go chase the eBay market or not. A lot of people did not want them to, but you can't argue with success. And so both companies launch headlong into this process of trying to basically like the way I describe in the book is it's like they owned eBay's cash registers. It's like eBay was the store and PayPal owned the cash registers.
And this is where David Sachs comes into play at Confinity. And because at that point, Confinity is originally a company that is doing Palm Pilot payment transfers, and they've done a demo, and that's been all their press. That's been their press and their hype on that front. And then David Sachs sees this big growth coming from online payments, in particular eBay users, and he says, "Hey, we're going to drop everything. We're going to go after this 100%." But he got some pushback from the team. How did he make this call? How was he able to convince the Confinity team to go along with him on this call?
I think he's one voice of many. So I should say he's obviously sort of like, look, this is like a real use case for our product. Like the users on eBay are actually like using this thing we created. Um, Luke Nosik is another person who's early in the company who says this is like a very concentrated market. There was one story about how he drew all these little dots on a board. And he said, like, if the internet is dots that are kind of all over the place, eBay is a cluster of dots in a really small part of the internet. And if we could dominate that, we could grow to other things.
Right.
The person who doesn't exactly like the fact that eBay is kind of like the place the product is taken off is the CTO, Max Levchin. He at one point, there were I was writing the book about how he made some efforts to sort of like block the eBay IP addresses so that the product couldn't be used, because in his mind the company's mission was mobile person-to-person payments. They wanted to make money transfer happen on Palm Pilots over the infrared port. This whole like emailing money thing was just a backup system to that. But very quickly, the board, everyone else in the company kind of recognized, look, they're growing, they're compounding every day, meaning the total number of users is increasing so much, so fast that you kind of can't ignore that success. And at the time, just again, to what I said earlier, getting one of these businesses to take off was so hard, right? And so the fact that you're having organic growth that's virally driven, that it just happened. You didn't try to win this market. It's an amazing thing. And so very quickly, everyone kind of comes around to the idea, like, we've got to figure out how to goose this growth. And right away, what happens is they start to build tools that are catered to the eBay audience. And it does actually meaningfully help to move the growth. What it does, though, is it puts PayPal in kind of direct competition with eBay. And there's a many years battle that ensues over kind of basically like eBay obviously doesn't want this parasite on its platform, and PayPal's fighting for survival to stay on the platform. And so a lot of the fun stuff in the book is around how did PayPal succeed, and what moves did eBay make to try to thwart them?